$620,000. That's what it cost when cement was poured over a Revolutionary War creek. I came home one Monday evening to find my family's 200-year-old waterway buried under gray concrete. "What the hell did you do?" I shouted at Clarissa Monroe, the HOA president, as she stood at the edge of the destruction with a clipboard and a smug little smile. "Improvements," she said, like she'd just spruced up a flower bed instead of erasing a piece of American history. She had no idea what she'd just done, or maybe she did. Either way, she didn't know that her little project would become the most expensive mistake of her life. The concrete hadn't even set before state officials, preservationists, and environmental investigators swarmed the neighborhood. Her arrogance had set off a chain reaction that would bankrupt her, expose years of corruption, and turn a quiet suburb into a historic battleground. When I inherited my grandfather's house in Briar Hollow, the first thing I fell in love with was the gentle curve of Mulberry Creek behind the backyard. I spent childhood summers there, listening to Grandpa Walter tell me stories about the creek's secret role during the Revolution. "This stream carried more than water," he'd say. "It carried messages, goods, hope." At the time, I thought he was just being poetic. I didn't realize he meant it literally. The house was old, charming, and in need of work. The roof leaked, and the plumbing groaned like it was haunted. But the creek flowed the way it always had, untouched, sacred. Grandpa had spent decades protecting it, attending county meetings, waving around historical documents, and quoting environmental laws like scripture. He was stubborn, proud, and right. The neighborhood welcomed me warmly except Clarissa. She arrived late to my housewarming party, her eyes scanning my property like a predator assessing prey. When she reached the creek, her lips pressed into a razor-thin line. A week later, I got a letter citing me for non-compliant landscaping along the creek. I replied with documentation proving its protected status. Her response? "The HOA doesn't concern itself with folklore." And just like that, the war began. Things escalated fast. One morning, I found the official state historical marker tossed into my trash. When I confronted her, she shrugged. "Unauthorized signage," she said, like the past was just another decoration to be approved or discarded. Then came the bombshell: construction starts Monday. I spent that weekend photographing everything: the old mooring stones, the bend that matched an 18th century map, the remains of a wooden bridge Grandpa once told me about. I begged the State Preservation Office for help, but Monday came too fast. I came home to find a sterile concrete channel where the creek had once meandered. The workers pointed to an HOA document that wasn't even a real permit. Clarissa had paid them triple to finish in one day before anyone could stop her. And just like that, history was gone under a slab of cement. But she'd overplayed her hand. She sent me an $8,500 invoice for landscape improvements and threatened to put a lien on my home when I refused to pay. That was the moment I stopped hoping she'd back off. I started digging. I uncovered violation after violation, 15 in total. No state permits, no environmental assessments, no board vote, no public notice. Just Clarissa playing queen over a kingdom of silence. That's when I met Aaron Gallagher, a preservation officer whose father had researched the very creek Clarissa had buried. She handed me a folder and said, "You're not just dealing with HOA nonsense. She's trying to erase the site so she can challenge its protected status." Aaron showed me Clarissa's original plan, a boutique resort built on the creek, complete with fake colonial shops and diverted water features. She'd already tried to get approval years earlier and failed. Now, as HOA president, she was executing revenge disguised as beautification. But revenge doesn't look so good under a microscope. I launched a blog documenting every detail: photos, legal documents, copies of Clarissa's threats. The response exploded. Historians, environmentalists, even former HOA victims from other states flooded in with support. Public pressure mounted. Clarissa grew desperate, issuing daily violation notices. One day, she claimed my bird feeder was a wildlife attraction feature. $500 fine. I posted it. People lost their minds. Clarissa crossed the line when she broke into my mailbox and opened a letter from the preservation office. When I caught her red-handed, she laughed. "Prove it," she sneered. "Who do you think this neighborhood believes, you or me?" Her arrogance was astonishing, but Aaron moved fast. She scheduled an unannounced state inspection for Tuesday. That night, My security cameras caught 3 men sneaking into my backyard with concrete tools trying to disguise the damage. I called the police. One officer told me, "I've been following your blog. What's happening here isn't right." For the first time, I felt like the tide had turned. The inspection team arrived at 9 a.m. Clarissa tried to block them at the gate. Sheriff Larson showed up with a court order and made her move. What they found was devastating. Blocked springs, destroyed habitats, endangered species wiped out. And then came the twisted construction receipt showing Clarissa had used HOA funds without approval. The foreman admitted she told them to pour fast, ignore permits, and finish before anyone could object. That night, Clarissa called an emergency HOA meeting to spin the story. But I brought the receipts literally. Proof of falsified minutes, misused funds, and her original rejected resort proposal. Residents finally spoke out. One woman stood up and said, "She's been threatening me about my shutters for years." It snowballed. Then the real bomb dropped. The preservation team found Revolutionary-era coins and documents buried in the remaining creek. Clarissa hadn't just destroyed a waterway, she'd vandalized a national treasure. The state fined the HOA $620,000. But according to preservation law, the person who ordered the unauthorized work was personally liable. Clarissa's smirk finally vanished. She tried to run, but the board wouldn't let her leave the meeting without resigning. Investigations uncovered more: embezzlement, nepotism, falsified records. Her supporters abandoned her. She was hit with lawsuits from homeowners and a criminal fraud investigation. Her house was sold to pay part of the fine. Her Mercedes? Gone too. Under the new HOA board, I was asked to serve as historical advisor. With state supervision, we began restoring the creek. As we removed more concrete, archaeologists discovered a chest of colonial coins, real Revolutionary gold, hidden during the war. The media descended. The creek became a national heritage site. The very destruction Clarissa tried to hide ended up immortalizing it. A year later, I sat on the bench Grandpa built, overlooking the restored waters. Dragonflies hovered over the current, and kids played nearby, learning about the very history Clarissa tried to erase. A neighbor called out, "Hey Jack, heard Clarissa applied for a job cleaning latrines at the state park." We both laughed, and I raised my beer toward the water. Justice flows, just like the creek, unstoppable and free.